weeks for the campaign, there's no doubt that it has been. And we've definitely seen some slippage in support, but it has been a small movement. And you know this, the reason is because so much of this race is hardened already. The American people know that the president is older. They see that. They knew that before the debate. Yes, of course, we have a lot of work to do to make sure that we are reassuring the American people that, yes, he's old, but he can do the job and he can win. And I think that that's really fundamentally what we're built for as a campaign. This entire campaign has been built for how close this race is going to be. It was close in 2020. It's going to be close in 2024. But what people know about the president is pretty hardened. And so for us, we know that people are not moving from Joe Biden to Donald Trump. What they're doing is they're saying to us, can he do it? And the president's saying, yes, I can. And they're moving to unsure, uncertain, because there's a lot of conversation, as you've already mentioned, that's happening right now. What's happening, what's not happening. He's absolutely in it. He's got to show that he is fighting for the American people. He's done that day in and day out since the debate. And he is also really holding the people that have been with him all along. And we see that, yes, obviously, of course, we're looking at analytics, we're looking at polling, we're seeing, what a lot of people are seeing, of course. But we're also looking at a lot of numbers that matter, too, which is what is happening on the ground. And those numbers of our engagement with voters matter. So just as a sample, we did about 100,000 door knocks this week, so over the last few days, all across the battleground states, so just battleground states. And these are people which we would call re-engagement targets. So they're people that have been with us in 2020. Maybe they're not engaged in the race. Maybe they're, not as partisan and political as we are. So we have a little extra work to talk to them. And then expansion targets. These are new people that weren't with us in 2020, but because of what Donald Trump's done with Roe v. Wade, because of what's happened in this country, they are open to us. These are women, they're suburban voters, they're independents. So we go out and we're door knocking just this week. So this isn't in the past, this is this week. Did about 100,000 door knocks. 76% of those people we knocked on doors and we talked to are with Joe Biden. We have about 16% or so that's undecided. They have questions. Is he in this race? What's going to happen? And then a small percentage that are not available to us. So, of course, we're looking at the full picture, but when you get to the bottom and the heart of what we are doing every day from the campaign, and we are dealing with the voters that are in battleground states, they have questions, but they are staying with Joe Biden, and our numbers are showing that.
So I'm curious then what you think about, for example, someone like Nancy Pelosi equivocating on this, because that's someone whose political acumen is unmatched for sure. And I think it's safe to say, I think we both would agree, Jen, that the chaos, the disorganization, the lack of unity that we are seeing right now in the Democratic Party and in support for Joe Biden is very damaging and is paving the way for a Trump win. So my question to you is, what does Joe Biden and the campaign say to those who continue to say he should step down, including incredibly high-profile names like Chuck Schumer and whispers from former President Obama? And how does Joe Biden compare to the other names floating out there as replacements for him?
Well, look, first of all, if you just take a step back, I think every person believes that we have to defeat Donald Trump. We are united in that. And we know how high the stakes are. We saw that on the stage last night. So 100% we are all in this for the same reason, and we're unified behind that. At the same time, we also have to take seriously the concerns that people are expressing. But the way to get past them is to get back to the business of beating Donald Trump and setting up that clear choice about the president's vision versus Donald Trump's vision. You have seen the president out there. I think of the event he just did in Detroit, where he was laying out his path for the first 100 days of his second term versus Project 2025. And we saw that on full display last night. So at the end of the day, as I was talking about, the president, the impression of the president is very hardened. That's really important because people know and are baked in. That's why the movement has been pretty little since the debate, because they know who Joe Biden is. But when you think about the work we're doing of talking to voters, the people that are going to make the decision in Michigan and Pennsylvania, we know we have work to do, but we have work to do that is very clear and a path forward. We have multiple pathways to victory. And we can do that by really reaching these voters. And so, you know, we have the greatest respect for the leaders of our party. Joe Biden is in this for all of them, but he's also in this for people like Hadley Duvall, who was out there this past week. I think people in this country had a chance to hear from her and hear her poignant story about what happened to her and what would happen to other young women like her if Donald Trump is president with Roe v. Wade. That is Team Biden. Today we rolled out a new ad in Georgia about a doctor who is talking about what's at stake for her community with the rollback of rights and reproductive health care for our country. So at the end of the day, it's going to take all of us unifying and moving forward, there's no doubt, but it is about the people that we're talking about. Joe Biden's not in this alone. He is an amazing vice president, but the people that are standing up, 1,300 women, black women leaders across this country put out a letter yesterday saying they're with Joe Biden and the 14 million people that made him the Democratic nominee, and they want us to move forward and unify so we can go back to fighting Donald Trump. We're going to have an endorsement later today from a very significant national organization as well. So we continue to grow support. We have a lot of work to do, there's no doubt, but there is a path, and the perception of the president is as clear as before. It is a hardened perspective on who he is and his leadership, and they know him as President Biden, but they also know him as Joe Biden, and they know who he's fighting for, and the voters stay connected to that, and that's what matters most.
Jen, good morning. As you know well, part of the argument we heard from Majority Leader Chuck Schumer when he sat down and met with President Biden, part of what we heard from Senator Jon Tester, who's running a difficult race in Montana to keep his seat, is that they have great respect for Joe Biden. They appreciate his legacy, his half-century of service, but they're worried about the downstream effects of his candidacy, of his being at the top of the ticket. And if you look in battleground state polls, nationally, head-to-head, those are tied effectively for the most part, but as you know very well, this is not a national referendum. Donald Trump leads in just about every swing state you can find. In fairness, some of them still within the margin of error. But what's also interesting is that Democratic candidates are running so much higher and faster and above where Joe Biden is. So what do you say to candidates who are concerned about the drag he may have and that he could perhaps cost Democrats the House and the Senate?
Well, look, I think we have extraordinary Democratic candidates on the ticket in battleground states and non-battleground states. And we had extraordinary elections in 2022, despite what the polling was saying at this point as well. So I know that the president knows better than anyone how to run and win locally. In 2020, this was more of a national race. I think, in part because of COVID, people were taking this in a more national setting. But we have believed from the beginning that this is a state-by-state race, and that the battleground states that we need to focus on, we're building the organization, we are doing the work, the voters and the volunteers are doing that work. We have extraordinary candidates that are running with us. And I hear a lot that, is embedded in this question that this isn't a race about issues. It is a race about issues. And when we are able to fight on the issues, we are able to win. And that's exactly why we have such strong leadership. So we are very focused on continuing to reach voters. We're doing the work. This campaign is built for a very close race. We knew it was going to be close from the beginning. We know that we have a clear path forward. We have a very strong Democratic Party up and down the ballot who have led across the board through some of the toughest times with the president at the top of the ticket. He is tested. He has beat Donald Trump before. We have the path forward in our pathway to get to 270. And we know that Joe Biden has to do the work to reassure the American people that he's in it to win it, and he can do that. And we've seen that time in and time out, and we are seeing that on the ground in the states. That's not as big of a story, but the fact that despite having tough weeks coming out of the debate, we still get more support. We have, of the 600,000 grassroots donors that came in the days following the debate, 300,000 of them are brand new. So there is work to do, no doubt. This has not been an easy period, but there is a lot of support for Joe Biden, not just against Trump, and they are with us. This is an organization built for the Biden-Harris ticket, and it is doing the work to get us where we need to be in November.
So, Jen, that's the Capitol Hill side of this. That's the Jon Tester, the Chuck Schumer argument that he's going to drag down Democrats with him. What do you say, though, more importantly, perhaps, to regular people, regular Democrats who, again, like Joe Biden, voted for him in 2020, appreciate him, but watched that debate, frankly, a couple days ago, watched him get on and off Air Force One and held their breath and go, that's a guy I love, but a guy who I just think is too old to win this election and to be president for 4 more years. I'm talking about regular people, the kind of people we all meet when we go out, our families, when we go out to restaurants, when we go to the gas station, who go, I'm a Democrat, I want to beat Donald Trump, but I don't think he's the guy because he's too old. What do you say to them this morning?
Well, look, you're focusing on exactly what we're focused on, the voters. And there's no doubt, look, I'm not here to just say this is a elite and media narrative. We have to understand exactly what we're seeing, as we've talked about. We know that we've slipped a bit from the debate, and we know that the president has to prove to the American people exactly what he believes, that he's in this to win this, he can do this. Not only that we have a campaign to do it, but he can do it. And he is, the only person that's done it before. And the way we do that is by showing the president out there doing the work, fighting for these voters. And, I go back to Detroit because I think that's such a clear contrast. That was just a week ago, and he was out there with bigger crowds than we've had at any other point during the campaign, energized, excited, and as he has been having discussions and hearing the concerns that have been talked about on your show and others, he's also hearing from voters, and what they're saying is, we've got you, Joe. We are in this. Stay with us. For every person that said that they are concerned, we've had another person that's seen him and have said, you are our guy and we want to be with you. In Detroit, we didn't organize some kind of rally chant for people to say, don't you quit. That was organic. And those homemade signs and people standing in line to show up there. And you've heard it, we've heard it. More and more people see Donald Trump. They dislike him. They remember why he is such a threat to this country. The more and more people that see Joe Biden out there post-debate, they are reassured that he is in it to win it, and he can do that. Of course, he's got COVID right now, and so, he's got some mild symptoms, but he's going to be back on the campaign trail next week, and he's going to continue to do that. This is definitely a hard period for the campaign, but when the president has been out there talking to voters and being with voters, when they have seen him lay out the contrast, shown that he is doing the job of leading this country and his candidate, they see in him the person that's going to win.
It's been a very rough stretch for the campaign since the debate over the past 2 or 3 weeks. It seems like 5 years now. And it continues to go on, and the president has said time and time again, I'm in this race, I'm not getting out of this race. And leaks continue by the day, whether it's from President Obama or what he said to him, or whether it's from Chuck Schumer, or just go down the list. Democrats I talk to, whether they want him out of the race or want him in the race, they all seem to be saying the same thing. Democrats need to get their act together, and they need to do it now. So how does that happen? How does this open debate
get behind him
that is so bad for the Democratic Party? How does this come to an end?
Well, look, I think, first of all, we are at the period of this campaign where Donald Trump is at his peak with his numbers. There's no new voter he's bringing to the table, right? So that's an important kind of framing to remember. And we are about to head into our convention. We're about to head into, the delegates of this party who are there for Joe Biden. Those delegates are going to nominate the president as the candidate moving forward and as our nominee. And they're staying with the president. And at the end of the day, we are not sitting back with our head in the sand without recognizing this has been a tough couple of weeks. Of course it has. But at the same time, my biggest message to you and to your viewers is, while this has been such a hard week, the people, the voters, the volunteers are still doing the work. The people like Hadley Duvall are traveling to Milwaukee to make sure that in all of this, that their story isn't lost. For every bad story and leak and someone that thinks they know about something that happened with the president in some conversation that he's not having, there is a person, a senator, a governor, a real person that is out there in Milwaukee making the case, that is in a battleground state holding an event, mayors from all across the country, labor that are standing with him, that have members in every single state. So there is no doubt we need to move forward. There is no doubt we have to go back to focusing on taking on Donald Trump, because there is too much at stake. There is no doubt that the people that have driven this conversation care about this country as much as the president does. but there is 1,300 people, staff in this building on this campaign, and they are doing the job every single day to reach the voters and make sure that that choice is clear to them, and that work continues to happen. The president has the delegates, he has the support. He was elected in this process by 14 million voters, in 2020 by 81 million, more than anyone before him. The broad coalition of people that stand with the president is bigger and wider than the people that don't want him to run. And those are the people that are doing the work in the states that really matter. And I am confident when we get back to being able to go take the case to Donald Trump, we have the time to do it, and we can bring home the people that have some concerns or a little undecided today, because when they see those two head to head and the visions they have for this country, there is no doubt in my mind that the American people are going to be with Joe Biden.
So, Jen, despite the flurry of reporting over the last couple of days about what the president may or may not be thinking, that according to the New York Times, he's come to terms with the fact he may have to get out of the race, it sounds over the course of the last 20 minutes like you're saying the exact opposite. He's not going anywhere. So is there any chance that the president gets out of this race at any point?
You have heard from the president directly time and again. He is in this race to win, and he is our nominee, and he's going to be our president for a second term.
All right, Chair of the Biden-Harris 2024 campaign, Jen O'Mally Dillon, thank you very much for coming on the show. We appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.